Mike, I asked the Tolos this question. I ask everybody this question because I'm having a hard time finding it. Do the Cowboys have an edge in the game against the San Francisco 49ers? If they do, where is it?
Well, I believe that the Cowboys pass rush, the defensive front, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I would say is better than their offensive line in passing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, you've heard me. I've criticized Dak. I've said Dak is an uninspiring player to me at this point in my kind of Cowboys watching and fandom. I get he's good. I get that the players are inspired by him. The players on the team love him, and that's what matters. It doesn't matter that I'm uninspired by him. I'm not on the team.
Yeah.
They're inspired by him. Dak's better than Brock Purdy right now. Brock Purdy might end up being better. At the end of this year, we might look at both quarterbacks and go, dang, man, Brock Purdy is turning into a really good quarterback. In fact, he might even be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, which Dak lives around that number 10 area. So right now, you're better at quarterback. I think when you're going matchups, because if you look at, is their defensive front better than our defensive front? Man, it's super close. Our secondary versus their secondary. With the loss of Trayvon Diggs, I would say our secondary is better. With the loss of Trayvon Diggs, I'm not sure now. It's very close. These teams are very close. And that being said, if these teams are very close, they're way better at running back. Nothing against Tony Pollard, but Christian McCaffrey is a super stud. And then they have a couple backups. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a name on their backup running back who's a pretty
Elijah
good,
Mitchell.
Yes, he's I think a really good backup too. Is our quarterback is better, or the Cowboys quarterback? If you're not a Cowboys fan, you know the Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott is better than Brock Purdy. You have that advantage, and Dak has to take advantage of that advantage because it comes down to these are two very good defenses, and they both have weapons on offense. Can Dak be better? At some point in your life, Dak, you're going to have to be better on the road versus a team that's as good as you. If not, you go into the Tony Romo category.
Yeah. I think when it comes to Dak Prescott, Mike, specifically, I understand when you watch guys like Mahomes, Rodgers, the guys that have had those drives that it was just like, we need this drive to go down the field, win the game. He has to be the dude that's making all the plays. It's just like, okay, in the moments, in playoffs at least, he's let us down.
Yeah.
And you can say, well, the defense, whatever.
Right.
That's fine.
Things happen.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But
he was the one who decided to scramble and run the clock out in the first.
He had the ball in his hands, man. He had the ball in his hands. He's the one with that opportunity. And I also understand they called the play where Zeke had to block as the center. I get that. But the thing that inspires me about Dak is like how invested he's 1,000,000% invested in this team, right? Like he wants to be the Dallas Cowboys quarterback. He wants to be the guy leading these guys. I just don't know if he has that next gear. And so I do, but I agree with you on the front of Purdy. Purdy is, people keep saying he's a product of the Shanahan offense. And I agree with that to a certain extent. And it was Babe Laufenberg this morning that said something that I've been thinking for a while. There have been other quarterbacks in that didn't work out.
Right. That
weren't nearly as good as even Garoppolo.
Yeah.
That failed and didn't do it right. I mean, even Trey Lance didn't get it done right with the San Francisco. I know he had injuries, but he didn't look great when he had his opportunities.
Right.
Brock Purdy has looked good. So I'm not saying that he is transcendent. I'm not saying that he's a guy that's the next Tom Brady, but he knows how to play in that offense comfortably and let their defense. So when I'm looking for that edge, I can't look at that and say my quarterback has a distinct advantage there.
Okay. I hear you. And I will say this about Brock Purdy and about Dak Prescott. The goal, I know I sound like the former Jets coach, but you play to win the game. And I do think this, we get so stats oriented because of fantasy football. Fantasy football has been going on now strongly for 2 decades. Mm-hmm. I remember playing it, my first time playing it in 1999 when I was in AA in Akron. So I know that it's been around for a while, but I look at fantasy football and it has distorted people's view at times on what the quarterback is supposed to be doing. And so if a quarterback like Brock Purdy throws for 220 yards, and you go, and he had 2 touchdowns.
Or 1 touchdown. Let's say one touchdown.
And you're just like, well, he didn't play very good. And you're like, they won 30-7. Like, I don't know. You need to go back and watch. Well, he was 19 of 29. That's only a 65% completion rate. You're like, do you want to go back and watch the game and you tell me when he should have been throwing the ball deeper more or should have been taking more risk? There's only 17 games in an NFL season, and then the game can dictate. And this goes to Dak Prescott's numbers right now, too. He's only had 1 game where you really needed him to save your team. You needed him to throw for 340 yards and 4 touchdowns, and he didn't do it. And the Cowboys lost. And it's not on him. The whole team played bad that game.
Mm-hmm.
But there's certain games where you go, dude, going into this game, most likely when you're playing Kansas City, you're going to have a great game as a quarterback because most likely you're playing the best quarterback of your generation. But sometimes the game dictates that the quarterback's numbers are not going to be spectacular. And then you run into people that don't really understand how to play professional sports and don't really follow it with an educated view. We'll start going, well, look at the numbers. Just look at the passing yards. Look at the touchdowns. And you're like, let's go back and individually break down each game and go, you know what? He needed to throw for 100 more yards in this game. He needed to throw for more touchdowns in this game. Or did he do what he was supposed to do to win?
Yeah, no, I think you got a really valid point there. You know, as I continue searching for that edge that you can say, all right, offensive line versus their defensive line. I know I just saw Tyron Smith out there. The way they wanted this offensive line, they're all in pads this week right now for this weekend. I know Jerry said earlier in the week that it was a little iffy. We'll ask him tomorrow when we're at Buffalo Wild Wings. We'll ask him about Tyron Smith and his possibility of playing. But then I'm like, man, their defensive line's really good. And then I go, but our defensive line's really good.
Right.
But
these are very similar
their
teams.
Offensive line is very good. Yesterday, Mike, when Adolis Garcia,
I do the same thing.
When he hit his home run, I felt like I heard 7 bats break, and when he hit it, it had the sound. I distinctly remember this. I got lucky, Alex on the board with us today, and you'll probably hear a lot more of him. But I got lucky to face Mike Bassick on the Frisco Rough Riders field. And I made a bet with him when we were a night show that I could hit 7 out of 10 off of him. I got 4. Mike still says I put 4 in play. I say I hit 400 off pro pitching. They
were 4 hits because there was no defense.
There wasn't anybody out there.
But
one
of them, I think, was foul.
There was a moment whenever we were walking up the stairs to the batting cages, and we hear this just whack. And Mike goes, that's a pro hitter right there. This was at Dirk Nowitzki's game. He's like, that's not
Tyron Smith. Dude. That's not Dirk Nowitzki hitting. That's a real hitter.
And when we got up to the cage, it was Pudge. And he was like, you can tell the difference between a pro hitter and that. And that's what I heard in Adolis' home run yesterday. I don't know if you heard the same sound, but I heard it. And
saw a hanger and we bang it.
And that's what Sunday night's about to be with this game. This is going to be a hard-hitting 2 defenses that want to show that they are the dominant one out on the field Sunday night.
I don't know what records are after you play San Francisco lately, and we'll worry about that the next week. But I just remember when you play some of the most physical teams over the last 2 or 3 decades or so, the next week you have a bad week because you're so physically beat up from playing that style of football. So this is one of those games, this San Francisco game. There's a lot of meaning into this game, and there should be a lot of meaning into this game. But you also have to be physically ready to play the next week. And it seems like when you play teams like San Francisco, or let's face it, at times teams like Dallas, you can lose 2 games in one night because you're so physically beat up from that game that it's like going to take you an extra week for you to finally get over how physically draining and mentally draining that game was.
Yeah, I'm always begging for a light opponent on Sunday before they have to play Thursday for the Thanksgiving game, because I'm always like, please just give it somebody that they can physically make it through this game so that they can get to the next one, because it's just it's a short turnaround. And in addition to the simple fact that you're even earlier in the day on Thursday than you would typically be on a Thursday night. So I'm still trying to find it. I want to say like Tony Pollard and McCaffrey, I think edge goes to San Francisco. A lot of the things I look at this team and I'm like, okay, that's even. That's a push. I think the running back is a little bit better. He has a different capability. Play caller. At the moment, I still think the play caller for San Francisco is better than the play caller here. Maybe that changes. Maybe on Sunday night, Mike McCarthy says, all right, it's time to show y'all every trick I have in the bag. Because you're seeing things that Kyle Shanahan's like, yeah, we've been doing that. Mike McDaniel's doing that in Miami right now. He's using a lot of the concepts we've been using, and it's smart on him to use these things because where they got the cheat play where you get one receiver or one Debo to go right on the outside of a receiver and you kind of get a little momentum as you're going along. So I see that. I think that play caller currently has the advantage there. So it's going to come down to what somebody said here on the fan text, and that is the Cowboys it means more to them on Sunday night. It means more for them to win it than it does for San Francisco.
Yes. The other thing, too, is you had that horrible loss against Arizona. I brought it up yesterday. I'm not saying that if you lose this game, it's over, but for me, it is a little bit because I look at it and go, you can lose 2 more games the rest of the year. If you lose to San Francisco, you have possibly 2 more losses the rest of the year to win the division, and they can't beat a Philadelphia. You have to sweep Philadelphia most likely in that scenario. I hate saying that. It's week 5. There's plenty of football left, all of those things. But you look at what position you're in, and there's just no way, guys. Just let's be realistic. Even if you're the most optimistic Cowboy fan, going to, let's just throw out New Orleans. Go to New Orleans in the first round of the playoffs, wild card week. You beat them. Now you go to Philadelphia. And you have to play that one. Let's just say Philadelphia did have to play a game or something like that. They'd probably have a bye because you're the wild card team who won. And then you have to go to San Francisco. That's too much. It's too much on Philadelphia. If you can win this division and you make Philadelphia go road game, road game, road game to get to the Super Bowl, I just don't think the Cowboys are capable of it. And I don't think Philadelphia is capable of it. In a way, San Francisco has an easier path because I don't think, even though the Rams have played better this year and they might sneak into the playoffs, I'm still not a Seattle fan. I think Geno Smith is a below average starting quarterback. I know what Reggie says, and I totally get it. He has had a renaissance, and he's like, he can start in the league. I'm not scared at all about Seattle. And then we know how horrible Arizona is for the most part, is they don't have to worry about that. As long as they stay healthy, stay focused, they're going to win that division, which means worst case scenario, they go home game, road game, road game. But most likely they're going to go home game, possible home game.
Okay.
If they don't get the bye.
Yeah. And
so I just look at the Cowboys. They are not good enough. They are not mentally tough enough to go 3 road games in a row and make it to the Super Bowl.
Ooh, that is some hot fire right there from Mike Bassick. And maybe they need to listen and go get after it a little bit.